20 years ago, I thought I was living the dream. I was 28, freshly promoted, driving a Honda that rattled more than it purred, and sleeping in a studio apartment with a Murphy bed that threatened to fold me in half every night. But I was in love, head over heels, stupidly in love with Fiona. Her world, though, was nothing like mine. Her father was the kind of man whose handshake felt like a job interview, tailored suits sharp enough to cut glass. Her mother drove a Mercedes she swapped out every 3 years for safety. Their house? White columns, circular driveway, the kind of neighborhood where the mailboxes cost more than my car. The first time I met them, I showed up in my best Target khakis. Her dad smirked and called me the operations fellow, like I was shoveling coal somewhere. Dinner was 3 forks deep and crystal water glasses, like royalty had RSVP'd. Her mom asked about my 5-year investment plan. At the time, my entire portfolio was $20 in savings and praying my Honda survived the winter. 6 months before I proposed, her father pulled me aside at a barbecue. I thought he was about to give me stock tips. Instead, he unzipped a leather portfolio and pitched me a prenup like it was a timeshare. "It's just good business," he said. By the time I actually popped the question, the ring still warm from 18 months of financing, I walked into their kitchen to find an attorney waiting with a 3-ring binder. Tabs. Color coding. A table of contents. It looked less like a prenup and more like launch codes for a nuclear strike. Separate property in blue, no spousal support in red, infidelity clause in orange, inheritance in green. And her mom just smiled, icy and perfect, and said, "If no one plans to cheat, it shouldn't matter." Then came the ultimatum. Sign, or there's no wedding. No romance, no compromise. Just ink the deal, or lose the girl. I was furious. Called my buddy Bill, ready to flip a table. He just laughed and said, "If you're not after her money and you're not planning to cheat, who cares? Sign it." So I did. I hired a bargain basement lawyer sandwiched between a nail salon and a Subway, and he glanced through it. "Aggressive but legal," he shrugged. At 28, all I could think was, I love Fiona. How hard could this be? Famous last words. The wedding was a production. I wanted a DJ, they got a string quartet. I wanted an open bar. They served signature cocktails no one could pronounce. But I didn't care. I was marrying Fiona, not the wedding. And for a while life was good. A little beige starter home with a yard, a garage, and neighbors who minded their own business. Kids came fast, Claire, then Nate, Luke, Julia. For in 8 years, Fiona ran the house with military precision while I worked myself raw. Promotions, long hours, late nights. Every dollar went into building our life. We even paid off the house 12 years early. Every bonus, every tax refund, every spare cent went straight to the mortgage. Fiona called me a genius. Even her parents, those smug, polished skeptics, started to respect me, if only a little. Still, every Christmas her mom raised a glass and said, "Thank God for the prenup," like it was their family's greatest invention. For a while I thought we'd made it, that we were untouchable, that the deal I'd signed all those years ago was just a dusty binder sitting on some forgotten shelf. But life has a way of circling back. By year 15, the cracks in Fiona's perfect family started to show. Her parents, the ones who once measured worth in vacation homes and imported cars, suddenly stopped bragging. The Mercedes became a Honda. The vacation home? Sold. Their precious country club membership? On hold. Turns out they dumped their fortune into a can't-fail investment scheme. Spoiler. It failed. Hard. Lawsuits followed, the kind that drained bank accounts faster than faucets. For me, it was background noise. For Fiona, it was like watching gods bleed. Her parents had always been bulletproof until they weren't. And while they spiraled, she drifted. Book clubs, yoga, pottery, volunteering, harmless hobbies on paper. But in practice, they swallowed her whole. Nights out turned into late nights out. Dinner, homework, bedtime. It was me holding the line while she chased this restless version of herself. When I asked, she snapped, "I gave 15 years to this family. I want something for me." Fair enough. But something doesn't usually keep you out till midnight 3 times a week. Our fights started small, sarcasm disguised as jokes, digs about who did more. She'd make dinner and act like she'd performed brain surgery. I'd fix a leaky pipe, and somehow it didn't count. Her favorite phrase? "You take me for granted." Meanwhile, I was grinding 50-hour weeks, paying bills, fixing the house, showing up for every recital and soccer game. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't absent. Still, she swore I wasn't there. I tried to fix it, date nights, flowers, babysitters. But it felt staged, like we were cosplaying as a happy couple. Even intimacy dried up, reduced to birthdays and anniversaries. And when I brought it up, I'd get the same tired script. Too stressed, too tired, not appreciated. A catch, 22. No closeness because no intimacy. No intimacy because no closeness. And yeah, I'll own it, I coasted too long. Work, kids, house, repeat. I thought responsibility was enough. It wasn't. Here's the kicker though, the irony no one prepares you for. While my marriage unraveled her parents, the same ones who once treated me like I was lucky to breathe their air, started warming up, asking about work, complimenting the house. Even her dad told me once, "You've given our daughter stability." That's rare. Coming from him? That was surreal. But movies lie about infidelity. There's no dramatic reveal, no lipstick on the collar. Real life is quieter, crueler. I found out because her phone buzzed on the counter one night. A message preview I wasn't meant to see. One name, one photo. And just like that, the floor dropped. I didn't explode. I didn't confront her in flames. I did what I do best, I documented. Phone records, credit card statements, location sharing she forgot to turn off. A timeline built with precision. Lunches that weren't lunches. Yoga at the Marriott. Book clubs in some stranger's apartment complex. The man? A divorced cliché on a motorcycle, quoting authentic living like it was scripture. 3 weeks of quiet surveillance, and the truth was undeniable. While I was bringing flowers to a dying marriage, she was living a second life I never signed up for. The next morning, I walked into a lawyer's office, a folder of evidence in one hand and our ironclad prenup in the other. She flipped through the pages in silence. And I just sat there, realizing my wife had already buried us long before I arrived. "How long have you known?" she asked, her voice shaky, almost daring me to lie. "About a month with proof." "Maybe 6 months of suspicion," I said. My lawyer flipped through the prenup like it was a script she already knew the ending to. "This clause here, the waiver of maintenance after your youngest turns 18, and this infidelity clause covering attorney's fees? That's not boilerplate. That's very specific." I nodded. Her parents' lawyer wrote it. The lawyer smiled. "Well, congratulations. Their lawyer just became your best friend. With your youngest at 17 and the evidence you've got, you're standing on solid ground. The only question is, do you want to settle, or do you want to fight?" "What's the difference?" I asked. "Settlement is quicker, cheaper. Litigation is longer, uglier. But with this prenup, you'd win. Everything you're entitled to, and she'd be the one paying your fees." I didn't even hesitate. "How fast can we serve the papers?" 2 weeks, she said. "If you want this done right, we'll do it right." That afternoon, I drove home and looked at the house like I'd never seen it before. 20 years of mortgage payments, paint swatches, birthdays, late-night arguments about garbage duty. All of it suddenly felt like an exhibit in a museum of a life already gone. But I wasn't sad. I was furious. Furious about the lies, the manipulation, the way she twisted things to make me believe I was the problem while she was sneaking off to cheap hotels. And yet, every night, she still walked through that door, played the part of the devoted wife, asking about my day, complaining about dishes. Like nothing had changed. Either she thought I was an idiot or she really was a sociopath. Maybe both. The kids were oblivious, and I intended to keep it that way. They had school, sports, college applications, normal kid problems. They didn't need the truth about their mom's second life. So I carried on. Pancakes on Saturday, wrestling meets, homework help. On the outside, everything looked the same. On the inside, I was counting down the days until the sheriff walked up with that envelope that would split our world in two. 2 weeks felt like forever. But then it came. A text from my lawyer while I was in some boring meeting about supplier metrics. Service completed. 2:47 p.m. By the time I got home, her car was already in the driveway. She'd been served. Inside, the kitchen table looked like a war zone. Papers everywhere, her makeup smeared, eyes red, tissues piling up. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the hotel receipts. The feeling passed. "Really?" she said, voice cracking. "This is how you do it? Served by a sheriff? Like I'm some kind of criminal?" "It's just how the process works," I told her. "Nothing personal." She laughed bitterly. "Nothing personal? 20 years of marriage for kids, and you call it nothing personal?" I set my keys down, looked her dead in the eye. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice." That's when the tears started. The apologies, the begging for counseling, the promises that it didn't mean anything. If I hadn't seen the evidence myself, maybe I'd have believed her. But I had. And I was done. "I know about Jason," I said, calm, steady. "I know everything." Her face drained of color. The lies stopped mid-sentence. "All communication goes through the lawyers now," I told her. "You can't be serious. We have children. The kids will be fine. We'll both be fine. But this," I gestured between us, "is over." She tried one last card. 20 years. Doesn't that count for anything? "Exactly, Fiona," I said. 20 years. And it still wasn't enough to teach you loyalty. I went upstairs, changed clothes, came back down, and started making dinner like it was any other night. She sat there, broken, making frantic phone calls. The kids came home one by one, the usual chaos filling the kitchen, soccer bags dropped on the floor, teenage arguments, laughter, homework complaints. For a moment it almost felt normal. Except their mother looked like someone had died. After dinner I asked them to sit down. No build-up. No sugarcoating. "Your mom and I are separating," I said. "It's not because of anything you did. And it doesn't change how much we love you. But we won't be living together anymore." Silence. Then Julia, the youngest, still 17, burst into tears. She still believed we were unbreakable. Nate got angry. Luke glared at me like I'd just set fire to the house. "Some problems can't be fixed," I told them quietly. "And this is one of them." More tears. More questions. More anger. But I kept my lines simple, steady. "Problems we can't fix. Love you all. Nothing changes for you." I promised them I'd still be there, still show up at games, concerts, all the moments that mattered. What I didn't tell them was why. The cheating. The folder of evidence. The nights I spent connecting dots she thought I'd never see. That was adult business, and they were still kids. Kids old enough to vote maybe, but not old enough to carry this. Fiona just sat there, silent. No defense, no excuses, no promises of fixing it. Just tears. Maybe, for the first time, she realized this wasn't a storm we could ride out. The days that followed were a carousel of desperation. Crying, bargaining, threats, late-night phone calls to anyone she thought could reel me back in. My parents, my brother, even my best friend. She dangled counseling like it was a lifeline. Promised Jason would disappear. But I was done. The part of me that loved her had already gone quiet months ago, maybe years ago. What was left was business. Logistics. I moved into the guest room, living like a tenant in the house I'd built. Different meals. Different schedules. Passing like strangers in the hall. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. Teenagers have this uncanny ability to armor up when life demands it. But Fiona started using them as messengers. "Tell Dad we should try counseling. Tell Dad he's being stubborn. Tell Dad he's hurting the family." Classic manipulation. If I answered, the kids got dragged into the fire. If I stayed silent, I looked cold. She knew exactly what she was doing. And that's when I flipped the switch from separation to full divorce. Because once someone uses your kids as weapons, the gloves come off. Then came Julia's 18th birthday. She'd begged for simple, no drama, no spectacle. Just pizza, family, and a quiet night. I should have known better. In my family, simple and drama-free never coexist. For the first hour, it almost felt normal. We talked about classes, wrestling seasons, summer jobs. Even her grandparents managed small talk. For a second, I thought, maybe we could get through this night intact. But Fiona couldn't help herself. She raised her glass of Diet Coke like it was champagne and launched into a toast about family, about staying close no matter what challenges we faced. It wasn't a toast. It was theater. And everyone knew it. The table froze. Nate dropped his fork. Luke shifted in his seat. Julia's cheeks burned red. "Mom," Nate muttered, "please don't do this. Not tonight." Then Claire, always her mother's shadow, jumped in. "What's wrong with wanting the family to stay together? She's just saying she loves us." And that's when Julia, quiet, kind Julia, snapped. She set her pizza down, looked her sister in the eye, and cut through the lie. "Stop, Claire. You don't care about keeping this family together. You just don't want anyone to know you've been helping Mom cover up her affair." The silence that followed wasn't silence, it was an earthquake. You could hear the hum of the fridge, the scrape of a chair leg. My in-laws sat frozen. Luke's mouth hung open. Nate's eyes went wide like he'd just seen the curtain pulled back on the magician's trick. Fiona opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just air. Claire crumbled into tears, swearing denials. But Julia wasn't done. "I'm not stupid," she said. "I've known for months. The lies about where Mom was going. The deleted texts. The cover stories. I've watched this family fall apart while everyone pretended it was fine. And I'm tired of pretending." Then she stood up, walked away, left the truth hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The room exploded. Claire sobbing. Fiona scrambling to explain. My in-laws demanding answers. Luke asking over and over, "What just happened?" Nate sat there like someone had just told him Santa was real, and also a criminal. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. I just stood, grabbed my keys, and told them all, "Party's over. Time to leave." 3 minutes later, the house was empty. Fiona sent to her parents. The in-laws gone without a goodbye. Claire left in tears, dragging her boyfriend with her. Nate slammed his door. Luke sat in shock. And Julia was upstairs, exhausted but steady. I sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm sorry your birthday got ruined." She shook her head. "It's not ruined. I'm just glad it's out in the open. I'm tired of everyone pretending." "Smart kid. How long have you known?" I asked. "Since last summer," she said softly. "I came home early from soccer camp. I saw Mom's car outside some guy's apartment. When I asked, she lied." Once Julia's truth cracked the surface, the rest of the lies started bleeding out. I asked her why she hadn't told me sooner. She just shrugged, eyes heavy with the kind of wisdom kids shouldn't need to carry. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, Dad, I think Mom's cheating on you? You had to figure it out yourself." I hugged her tight, told her she was the best thing her mom and I ever did together. And I meant it. Then I walked downstairs, realizing my 18-year-old had just shown more maturity than anyone else in the house. Around midnight, Nate found me in the kitchen. He didn't dance around it, just asked how long I'd known. "A few months," I admitted. And when I added that Claire knew too, he just shook his head. "That's messed up, Dad." My instinctive reply, language, hung in the air like a bad joke. Wrong time. Wrong place. He just gave me a look, and I knew the point wasn't lost on him. That night was the last time I spoke to Claire for half a year. Not out of spite, not as punishment, just because I couldn't trust her anymore. When someone helps protect the lie that destroys your family, the boundary is simple. They lose access. Fast forward 8 months. Discovery wrapped. Settlement talk stalled. My lawyer practically glowing every time she flipped through the file. The irony was almost poetic. Her parents had spent a fortune on that prenup, ironclad, airtight, to protect their wealth from the so-called gold-digging son-in-law. Then they lost their wealth. Their daughter cheated. And now that same prenup was the knife twisting against her. No spousal support. Julia had just turned 18. The window slammed shut. Legal fees? All hers, thanks to that infidelity clause and my mountain of evidence. She'd already burned through 30 grand. I'd spent 8, and I was getting mine back. The house, worth 400K, split down the middle, except I'd been carrying all the costs, which stacked up like chips in my corner. She wanted to keep it, but the math didn't lie. No job, no credit, broke parents. No bank was betting on her. Retirement? My pre-marriage 401K was locked tight. She'd see scraps, maybe 40 grand. Add it all up, she was walking with barely 220. Enough to survive, not enough to keep living like she had. Meanwhile, I kept the career, the retirement, the stability. And no more financial leash to someone who burned our life down. Her parents tried to interfere, even begged me to show mercy for the children. Her dad actually called and lectured me about being too harsh. The same man who'd treated me like hired help for 20 years now wanted brotherhood. I reminded him it was his prenup, his lawyer, his rules. I was just letting the contract speak. He hung up. Fiona moved back in with them. 3 broke people under one roof, pointing fingers in every direction. She blamed them for the prenup. They blamed her for cheating. All of them blamed me for enforcing the rules they'd written. Claire kept texting, asking me to forgive, to remember everyone makes mistakes. Maybe someday I'll listen. But not when she's still on Team Mom. Not when she helped cover the betrayal. The kids, though, they adjusted better than anyone. Nate thrived on the mat. Luke got into his first-choice college. Julia made the honor roll. They understood the truth. The family was already fractured, and life was moving forward. But Fiona? She fought to the bitter end. Settlement after settlement, her lawyer pretending the prenup didn't exist. Mine just smiled, reminded them, contracts mean what they say. Judges see this every day. The evidence folder, the paper trail, it was a weapon built to win. When trial day came, the whole thing felt like theater. The judge flipped through the prenup, glanced at the evidence, and you could see it in her eyes. Her mind was already made. My lawyer laid out the case like a documentary. Phone records, credit card charges, location pings, hotel receipts. Hundreds of pages, every lie stapled down. Fiona's side tried every cliché, unfair contract, changed circumstances, think of the children. Her parents even testified, crying about how the prenup was never meant to be used this way, how it was just supposed to scare me. Then they called Jason. Poor Jason. The man walked in looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Under oath, he spilled it all. The timeline, the hotels, the affair. And when asked if he pressured her, he laughed, said she had chased him. Fiona's last move was the oldest one in the book. Tears on cue. A shaky voice about feeling unappreciated. A plea for the judge to see it as a moment of weakness. But by then, the story had already been told. The evidence was stronger than the tears. When my lawyer pressed her about the lies, specific lies she told me and the kids, Fiona unraveled. She had no choice but to admit Claire had been part of her cover-up. The judge didn't waste much time. After a short recess, she came back and made it clear. The prenup stood, the evidence was undeniable, and contracts mean exactly what they say. Full enforcement. And with the infidelity clause? Fiona was now on the hook for both attorney fees, $45,000 gone in a blink. The fallout looked like something straight out of a cautionary tale. The house was sold, the assets split down the middle of the prenup's cold lines. Fiona walked away with maybe 180 grand from the house, 38 from retirement, her car, and a few pieces of furniture. Then came that crushing legal bill, slicing through what little she had left. On my side, 220 grand from the house, my entire retirement untouched, my car, and not a single ongoing obligation to the woman who traded 2 decades of marriage for hotel meetups. And then, the plot twist almost writes itself. Just 2 weeks after the trial, Jason dumped her. Sleeping with a married woman had been thrilling while it was forbidden. But once she was just another divorced woman with debt and no safety net, the allure was gone. Suddenly, Fiona was back in her childhood bedroom, clocking in retail shifts for $12 an hour. Her parents, drowning in their own bad decisions, sold their house, only to realize they owed more than it was worth. They even took out a loan just to cover the legal bills. Meanwhile, the kids kept moving forward. Julia was thriving in college. Nate had made varsity wrestling. Luke already had his future mapped out. They saw their mom when they wanted to, but none of them pretended things were normal. Claire eventually gave up playing mediator. Her "we should all forgive" texts fading into silence after months of no reply. Because some bridges you burn yourself, and others they burn without your help. And me? I looked back at the contract I signed 21 years ago, the prenup everyone thought was just a formality. Turns out, it was the smartest signature of my life. The very document her parents, once used to shield their wealth, ended up cutting their daughter down. Irony doesn't get much sharper than that.